dear brothers and sisters in Christ, anyone this video is finding you. We left off in Matthew 23, and Jesus is calling out the religious leaders, and the gauntlet has been thrown, and he's about to put it down. So the last thing that was said was verse 7. They love to receive respectful greetings as they walk in the marketplace and be called rabbi. So Jesus is not holding back now because he's had it. And it's time to teach correctly so everyone can understand this. And as we read in the beginning of Matthew 23, everyone was there. Everybody. When Jesus did this. Congregation, the people in the square, his disciples, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and everybody was there. He wasn't holding back. He was bold. Verse 8, don't let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are equal as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your father. Catholics, did you hear that? Don't address anyone here on earth as father, for only God in heaven is your father. Don't let anyone call you teacher, for you have only one teacher, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. Did you hear that? Did you hear that? That's why Jesus went and washed everybody's feet. His disciples, he was proving this. He was the greatest of all greatest, but he humbled himself to a servant. Jesus, Yeshua, the Son of God, the Son of Yahuwah, relinquished his divinity, his divineness, his God status, to be born as a human, so he can experience everything we experience and why we fall into these traps that the devil sets for us. Matthew 4, the temptation of Christ. Okay? What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you shut the door of the kingdom of heaven in people's faces. You won't go in yourself, and you don't let others enter either. Listen, pastors and preachers, I know it's hard because you went to school. You went to college. You have all this knowledge. But you need to listen to your congregation. You need to listen to the parishioners and the congregation and whomever who come to you and they share things with you and they're bringing a different light to something that they've interpreted. Don't just shut them down. Listen. Okay? And give good advice. Don't let your ego get in the way. Personally, I am truly blessed that the Lord put the church that I attend to in my path. After becoming saved, after the Catholic witch, being a Roman Catholic and then being a Wiccan for all those years, and finally coming to Christ and finally being saved. And my neighbor that I was talking about in my previous video, he invited me to go to this church, and I went with him, and they were a non-denominational church, and it was very good for what it was. But a lot happened in the year and a half that I had attended there, and it just came to the point where they no longer suited the path that I was on. And I had gone to one of those Calvary churches after that for a very short season. I mean, like a couple of months before, I started receiving the call, the call to be the fisherwoman of mom, the dreams to follow Christ and bring my son with me and seeing Christ in the sky. And then after the pilgrimage to Florida, so the little trip to Florida, because we're gonna call it a pilgrimage. A lot of stuff happened there, as it's in my videos and how all of this started. Then the Baptist church.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Alexa's listening. Then the Baptist church that came upon my son's father's Facebook page is where we attend now. We've been attending that church for a good 2.5 years. It's going to be 3 years come the summer. And in fact, the school my son goes to now is affiliated with them. And it's been a really great experience. And our pastor and our associate pastor, they're just so wonderful. And it's nice to feel safe. And it's nice to feel that you could turn to your pastor and share things with them that the Lord's sharing with you, and they hear you. And they're not dismissing you because they're not riding this high horse that I'm a pastor and you're a peon. So, verse 15, what sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn that person into twice the child of hell you yourselves are. Yeah. Verse 16, blind guides, what sorrow awaits you, for you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple, but that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is more important, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And if you say that to swear by the altar is nothing binding, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding, how blind! For which is more important, the gifts on the altar or the altar that makes the gifts sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on that throne. What sorrow awaits you, teachers of religious law, you Pharisees, you hypocrites, for you are careful to tithe even the tiniest income from your herb garden, but you ignore the more important aspect of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. You should tithe, yes, but do not neglect the more important things. Blind guides, you strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a grit, but you swallow a whole camel.